All right, so my presentation was on Jean-Michel Basquiat, and he was born in 1960 and died in 1988, unfortunately, at the age of 27 from a heroin addiction. But he was a big member of the neo-expressionist movement and created the next picture we're going to see, which is titled Self Portrait, and it was made in 1984. So here we see what he has titled Self Portrait, and it's a picture of a man holding an arrow. Um, and as you can see, there's little diversity in color. It's a little more monochromatic. It has blacks, grays, and whites throughout the picture with little pops of like red and orange. It's not at all realistic. You can see in the face, it doesn't look like how a person actually looks. It's very skeletal. It has a dark overall theme, emotional subject matter, skeletal features, harsh lines, and political matter. You can see what appears to be like a flying pig in the background, right behind his hand. So that is some of the features that you would see in other neo-expressionist movements or pieces. Neo-expressionism was popular from the late 70s to mid 80s. Other artists that were popular in this movement were George Baselitz, Julian Schnabel, Francesco Clement, and of course Jean-Michel Basquiat. Um, Other parts of it included dark lines, emotional subject matter, often political, not realistic, and usually the colors were a little more monochromatic, or they had very it had a like color scheme, as you can see in this one. It has lots of oranges, reds, and browns. So, current events that were happening at that time, the Vietnam War was going on and the environmentalist movement was also happening. So, people were pretty upset about the Vietnam War, the draft cards. People were burning their draft cards. This caused a lot of backlash amongst people, and they retaliated by creating artwork. The environmentalist movement was also a big part of this time period because people were realizing what we were doing to the earth and that it was beyond repair at that point. So they were kind of angry about both things happening, and all that angst kind of built up into the art movement that we have. Another style to come from this time period was hip hop. I chose Public Enemy's song Fight the Power, which was made in 1990, because it is political. It is a very strong song about like fighting the power. And for my literary work, I chose The Color Purple by Alice Walker, which is a very iconic book. If you haven't read it, it deals with a lot of isms, so classism, racism, sexism, colorism, and it chronicles the life of a young woman named Celie and how she deals with being a black woman in America. It's a really good book, and I think it showcases this time period really well as well. And for my closing statement, I just wanted to say neo-expressionism is an artistic style that was used to express feeling that other forms of art may not be able to mimic so accurately, which is what makes this style so special and unique. And then that is my sites sourced. Sorry. And then
I see the questions are coming in.
When you first saw your painting, what did you think? When I first saw my painting, my initial thoughts were kind of that this person had a negative outlook on themselves because he drew himself, or he painted himself as unhappy. The painting was overall very dark and kind of elicited a negative emotional response. So upon first seeing it, I saw that he saw himself in a negative light. I don't know too much if my opinion on that has changed. But then also you can see in his hand the arrow. He's kind of standing tall. So there's also like a kind of look of pride to him almost. So that would be more along what I think now. What was your favorite thing about this time? Um, I I love kind of like the angst of it. I like that that people were, you know, finally speaking out about the wrongs that they saw in the world and they were sharing it through their art. I really like that. Um, this style gave me a dark vibe. Were all the paintings like this? Not all the paintings were so dark. This one in particular I chose because it stood out like that. But some of the paintings were more bright, but they all were fairly emotional. Do you think this was a way for artists to release just their negative emotions or just emotions in general? I would say emotions in general, um, because there were some that weren't as dark, but some they for the most part were pretty dark, pretty negative emotions for a lot of it. But yeah, that's about that's about it.
Okay, so I'm going to leave you with one more attendance question. And who